Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info coming at you after the conclusion of the Cup Series race at Mexico City, the Viva Mexico 250, where, unofficially, pending the results of post-race inspection, Shane Van Gisbergen has now scored the second Cup Series win of his career, his first since his landmark victory at the inaugural Chicago Street Course race, which we now return to in a couple of weeks here. And did so in dominant fashion, a near record lead margin, at least in recent memory here on pace. Some messages about that earlier on the show here with Christopher Bell in the second spot, a very distant second by more than 15 seconds there. But regardless, a tremendous victory and a landmark race for NASCAR this weekend. Their first points-paying race in an international venue since they went to Toronto in 1958. Which was Richard Petty's first ever Cup start. Yeah, I mean, interesting to see how everything shook out there. So we'll definitely be talking about that tonight here. We'll be talking about the Cup Series race and the Xfinity Series action. No shortage of storylines about that as well. I also have some different surroundings here as well. Last Mom has brought out some other quilts here with some Day of the Dead theming. Figured that would be a little bit of fun for something a little bit different here for our show and tell segment. So we'll kind of feature that along the way here as well. Yeah, kind of an interesting deal there. So, where do we even begin on this one? I think really, first and foremost, I guess we can look at the race winner himself. Shane Van Gisbergen pulling off the win. It's to me somehow coming into this, it already felt to me like he'd won a couple of Cup races. Obviously, he'd been winning more in the Xfinity Series before this full-time deal. Had struggled, the first part of this season as well. Still making a name for himself, still staying up there and building a fan base of his own. It's cool that he got to kick the rugby ball into the stands there again for this race here. Just put together a great clinic, but he was not the only driver up there. I think that with the weather changes we saw in this event, with the rain at the very beginning, we saw some different strategies, some drivers staying out on dry tires, some staying on slicks, or some staying on the rain tires. Really interesting to see how all that shook out at the very beginning, because we had other drivers like Ty Gibbs, for example, who, after leading 18 laps in the Xfinity race yesterday, looked very strong in this event, possibly a chance at winning his first Cup Series race. You remember he won his first Xfinity race, and I believe was the first Daytona Road Course race for the Xfinity Series. So again, not a driver that you can overlook when it comes to turning left and right out here. Again, it was a tremendous race. It was good to see other drivers up there. It was good to see some interesting faces up there. John Hunter Nemechek spinning out multiple times in this race, still getting up there and getting into almost the top five. Michael McDowell getting around him there at the end. And Cole Custer, I would say, was probably one of the most impressed drivers I was in this race. He was very aggressive, showing a lot of shots with debris, like a tear off or something was stuck to the A-pillar, and he was like flying through the field there and getting a good finish. Very impressive for drivers there. So Nemechek in the 6th spot, Cole Custer in 8th. This, of course, all pending the results of post-race inspection. But Shane Van Gisbergen pulling off the first win for the number 88 since 2020. The first since Trackhouse has been running the number here. Again, a great turnaround, leading 60 of the 100 laps there as well. Over Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott in 3rd, got to be in the podium celebration there afterwards. Alex Bowman, Michael McDowell, John Hunter Nemechek, Chase Briscoe, Cole Custer, and then Byron and Busher rounding out your top 10 for this race here. Kind of in different deal here. We got IndyCar about to start there. I see you there, Bowser Jr. Thank you for the heads up there on that. So again, maybe kind of a skeleton crew here for the show tonight, but after the post-race show, we'll delve into this a bit. So, again, it may have been a real dominant performance there at the end, but I think the first thing to take from this is that I don't think that takes anything away from what an accomplishment this was. To get all these teams down there for the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series, the logistics and stuff that were involved, and getting that all set up after what's been a pretty unpredictable week, I think you would have to say, in particular here, that kind of made things challenging. And then to have weather on top of that, with the rain at the beginning of the race. And then you had three drivers that were feeling ill before this, including the driver that ultimately won the race and won a race in a car that he thought at one point was having a loose wheel too. There was a lot, I think, that kind of just barely held together here in one respect, but it was interesting to see, and it was enjoyable to watch. And I think that the Prime crew and NASCAR Productions, I think they did a fine job showing off this track and showing how unique it was. My memory of it from those Xfinity races from, almost 20 years ago at this point, including Kyle Busch being the most recent winner of those races. Of course, had a very different kind of afternoon in the Cup Series race here just today. My memory of it was much more remote and, how it was set up there. But, I thought they did a fine job of kind of showing the area, and a lot of people that were visiting the track and seemed to be having a good time and everything. I was thinking that coming into this season, this was probably going to be the most interesting week on social media coming into this race about how things were going to play out and traveling such a long distance to get there. Obviously, plans had been in place about Montreal, and that's where you have the Michigan and Pocono races on either side of this. And now, unfortunately, it's a long jaunt up and down through the middle of the country, middle of two countries rather, to get back and forth there. But definitely thinking of all the truck drivers and logistics crews that are now working their way back north here afterwards there as well. But again, I think they put on a good show out there. I think there was a lot of really intense battles in the middle of the field, and I thought that Prime did a really good job of that, even more than in the Xfinity race that the CW was doing. I felt that the Prime crew really showed us like a lot of the crazy stuff that was going on there. The close call between Riley Herbst skating in front of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Carson Hocevar's deal with Stenhouse, and some of the other altercations that were happening through there. I felt like a good portion of the field was shown, which is what you have to do, especially when you have one driver be as dominant as they were in this one. And I was very curious how Prime was going to adjust to this, given the fact that all their races to this point had been just on ovals. But I thought they did a fine job with it, and I thought it was enjoyable to watch. It did feel its length a bit in the race, but I think that was just because Van Gisbergen was so dominant, and we did have a long green flag run to the end, which, as I've said in the past races, I don't have a problem with a long green flag run because I want to see the strategies play out and also see kind of the mechanical endurance of the cars and the physical endurance of the drivers. I would much rather have that than multiple green-white checkers over and over again, and then somebody just kind of ends up with a win. Sometimes you're going to get a race like this where a guy just utterly dominates, and, we've seen this in other venues earlier this year, like at Bristol. Again, I think that he put on a fine show out there, and as well as the conversation shifted there, of course, right into the playoffs. And now there's already a debate about that. It's like, well, should he be in the playoffs? Should he, does he deserve to be in there? Now we got all that stuff to, split hairs about here at the same time, which is unfortunate. The full season championship, even where Van Gisbergen would be outside the top 20 in points and he wins a race, we can just celebrate the win for what it is. And I think we're seeing the effect again of that transactional element of these wins in the point system. And it's unfortunate because we had the same deal last year when you had these great storylines with, Harrison Burton winning his first Cup race, with Chase Briscoe returning to victory lane in the Southern 500 right before Stewart Haas closed. Those would have been great stories in and of themselves, but they weren't allowed to be because immediately the shift was, okay, how are they going to do in the playoffs? Can they get past the first round? And then do they deserve to be in the playoffs? We're hearing this already, and it's unfortunate because it really should be a very, very distant second to how this race played out itself. And I'm afraid it's just not going to be, even a race as anticipated as this was, whatever your anticipation was of this event coming into it. So, I think that, if you look under the point system, obviously, yes, he does deserve. If you deserve under the point system here, it's not about what you deserve or anything like that. It's like, look, if you win, you're in, and that's the way the system is, and this is what they did. But again, I think it's another demerit against the system, not against Van Gisbergen, but unfortunately, this is the way the discussion's always going to be going. So I'm not crazy about that. I know that these broadcasters, they have to do that because, it's a stretch run to the playoffs and they're going to hype that up and it's going to be even more of a factor here. But again, the championship doesn't need to be that central, I think. And we saw a really good example of this, I would say, in the Xfinity race yesterday, with Daniel Suarez pulling off that tremendous win. I think with him doing double duty, or I guess triple duty. Was he in the Mexico Series race as well? I didn't watch that one. I know that they were doing that by radio there, but him being able to participate in these races, he was certainly going to be one that everybody was going to be focusing on, and clearly was the one that the crowd was particularly excited about. Not saying there weren't other drivers. He had Andre Perez de Lara and Ruben Ravello as well in the Xfinity race. But of course, driving for smaller teams, more inexperienced, both of them making their Xfinity debuts. It was going to be a stiffer challenge for the both of them. But Suarez pulling off that win yesterday was, tremendous. And I think a huge moment. And not just the way it happened, much like with Van Gisbergen, having the storyline with the backup car that he had in the Xfinity Series race. Pretty hard crash, honestly, that led to that situation there as well. But thankfully being able to be okay from that, starting at the back of the field in the international provisional spot where he wasn't even in a qualified position in the field, and then pulling off the victory there and not dominating the race at all, but getting the right track position at the right time and then being able to get the right restarts and being able to hold off a very spirited challenge from Taylor Gray. These are what the stories need to be. The story should be of the race itself and of the track. And I think we can kind of go into this here as well. I will freely admit coming into this race that, I had apprehensions about this event. I think that, even before this past week with maybe some of the stuff that's been happening in the news, I think that the border itself and international relations has already been such a big topic recently. It's not to say that it never isn't necessarily. I mean, I guess there's always going to be something happening in one respect or the other, but I did have some apprehensions about this. Honestly, wouldn't rule out, covering it at some point in the future. But there you go. But I was really glad to see from a lot of the people that were attending the race, Matt Weaver, for one example, Ryan Vargas, Brad Perez, others that were at the track there. Everybody just looked like they were having a great time. And it was interesting to see, the very unique, photography we saw. I mean, doing the starting grid earlier this morning, and hopefully you had a chance to see the starting grid I posted. And I want to make sure the Patreon members had advanced access to it there. So we had that, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. But one thing I thought was really enjoyable about putting that together is NASCAR.com assembled these pictures of the entire lineup, and every one of the pictures were different because there were so many just crazy vantage points from this racetrack to get some great pictures out at the racetrack there too. And so I thought that was a cool way to feature that, like just make the graphics a little more reductive here this time around with the drivers' names and so forth, but have the pictures kind of still sell the story there. So big kudos to the folks over at Getty Images for those particular pictures that were involved in that were posted over at the NASCAR.com page. I think that made putting that grid together pretty fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that as well. I think that was a different story to check there out at the same time. But it seemed like it was a really interesting track. I was very intrigued by the stadium section. I thought that was really cool. I had concerns about that coming in there, more from just the aesthetics of it, because I remembered back in 2005 to 2008, there was this great carousel turn there, and it was always really interesting because it made it very tricky to enter pit road, and it still certainly was, because basically half that corner was still there from exiting the stadium section. But man, it added so much personality to the track there. To have this remote S's portion, this Formula One kind of front straightaway, the chicane at the other end of the track where we saw so many altercations in turns 1 and 2. But to cap it off with the stadium section where it kind of reminded me of like Monster Jam or something, where you have like 3/4 of the stadium around there and the big opening at the other end. Actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the Clash of the Coliseum, where the cars were waiting in the tunnel to roll out, and the first couple of cars were kind of firing their engines and kind of reverberated out of that tunnel. I can only imagine what the acoustics were like in that section there, even with an open air stadium section. A very interesting track. And I think I think they put on a great show. It seemed like the most intense racing whenever they showed this in both the Saturday and Sunday races was happening in that stadium section. So that was really good to see. So I'm relieved, again, hopefully everybody has the safe travels back and everything. But from what I'm hearing, and again, we'll see how much more we hear, it sounds like, things were very successful. And again, I hate that a couple drivers were ill. I know Noah Gragson was not feeling well coming into this one after what was already a long week of him helping out the crew get the backup car ready after he glanced off the wall and had some damage to the primary there leading up to the race. It was just a little bit of everything, but there's always going to be, you can have those same struggles in a race here on this side of the border here at the same time. So yeah, again, I think that's kind of where that shakes out. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting track. I thought it was an interesting venue. I think that I'm sure people are going to have many more stories about what they saw in the area and so forth. And I think that's really cool to see. I think that I appreciate that NASCAR was very flexible in their logistics for this as well. I know originally we were going to have Xfinity Series practice on Friday, but then there was some issues with flights heading out. There were issues with people getting there, including Shane Van Gisbergen and himself getting out to the racetrack. I like that they show that NASCAR has really kind of improved in this respect. I think the last couple of years, for example, the storm that they had over at the Clash of the Coliseum and moving up all the events to earlier that day and trying to work with that by moving the Cup activity to Friday and then kind of cramming all the Xfinity stuff into Saturday. I'm sure that was a challenge in other respects there, but I'm glad it worked out as best it could for those involved. I know Ryan Ellis had a particularly big challenge getting over to the racetrack there at the same time. But yeah, it was interesting to see. There were a lot of unknowns in this one, and I think that it's good to see the sport venture out into these things and try things differently. And yeah, what does this say for the future of international races? Well, I mean, hard to say, really. I've been counting down the days till they get back to Montreal, because I think that was a race where every single event there was memorable. Everything, was an instant classic that was ever run in that race. And you have so many Canadian drivers that have run there. But, yeah, I mean, are we going to get back to a point? I remember younger where you used to have the exhibition races in Japan, or you had them in Australia, even further back. It's not something necessarily new. I know there was a lot in the shorthand that made it sound like this is the first time they've done a Cup Series race internationally. Not true. Obviously, we had races in Canada back in '58, and then other exhibition races in the decades since then. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's good to see, good to see other demographics out there, enjoy the sport. And I think that NASCAR may have discovered this through the Clash in particular, where they were able to literally build a track inside of a Coliseum. I think that was a very freeing experience, I think, for the sanctioning body, because they probably saw that and they're like, wait a minute, we can just bring this show wherever. And so then, yeah, then they're going to look at the streets of Chicago, or they're going to look at Mexico City, or maybe, something else. I mean, even further away, who knows? As much as I am not, I'm not a big fan of things where it seems like they're copying Formula One to an extent, whether it's the layout of the Cup Series, a garage feeling very sterile, kind of like Formula One, where it's smaller fields, it's harder to break into it, and charter limitations and so forth. Do I think that this is going to become predominantly an international series? Probably not, because NASCAR already has international series out. You got your Wheel and Euro series. Ryan Vargas was competing in that, and other competitors there, Jennifer Jo Cobb. I think that here and there, I mean, again, maybe the schedule, if you look maybe 10 years down the road, maybe just has a little bit of everything, and we're still going to just try to find that balance. Predominantly an American series, I would imagine. But then, yeah, having a few international races, having a few road course races. Maybe we get back to doing some dirt tracks or whatever, or maybe the schedule changes more frequently than it does in the past, although that's going to be tricky with the SMI ISC thing and all that. So who knows how flexible that's really going to be. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it was a fascinating venue. And it made for just something interesting to watch. Really, I don't really have too much to think of there too. Yeah, the Canada series as well. Bowser, seeing you mentioned that as well. But yeah, it would have been interesting if we had more starters. I kind of anticipated we were going to have a big entry list for this one, and I was kind of also hoping there were going to be more local drivers on the list. Unfortunately, we didn't really have that. I mean, things are just very different than they were back in 2005. Where you had a lot of, smaller teams in the Xfinity Series, and you had guys like Rafael Martinez and other drivers out there. competing in the series there at the same time. I'm glad we had at least a couple with Ravello and Dallara, although Dallara is already full time in the Truck Series here. But I think that would have been one thing that would really maximize that, especially in the Xfinity Series. But again, the cost, the logistics of that with the teams, and just how many teams are out there. Given the fact that the Xfinity Series has pretty much just had 40 cars attempt most of the races in these recent weeks, having 39 cars there is probably more or less what was expected there at the same time. So, again, kind of an interest, relatively open and shut this time around, I'd have to say. Catherine Legg was at the back of the field there, and she had really trailed off at the first few laps here, especially with the wet weather out there. She was about 6 seconds back of Ryan Truex, driving his relief role there for Denny Hamlin. Again, congratulations to the Hamlin family on their newest arrival. We'll look forward to Denny, I'm sure, is going to be very tough at Pocono, one of his best tracks this coming week here. We'll see if he has like the Darrell Waltrip kind of luck there, where DW won some of his last races after his children were born. So we'll see what happens there. That'll be another storyline for next week, I guess we'll be looking at there. But regardless, Legg was at the back of the field at the start. I think their journey was probably the most challenging, being the only open entry in the field. The Live Fast Motorsports effort did, however, make it down there, which is very exciting. Legg making her second Cup Series start, and not really being a big story in this one. I think there were concerns coming into this after her debut in Phoenix, and there were so many complaints about should she be there and blah, blah, blah. And, she's been running these other Xfinity races. It's still been a struggle for her there over at, the Joey Gase team and then the Jordan Anderson team. But she was not really a big story in that sense. You didn't have a bunch of cautions. She didn't seem to be involved in a lot of situations there. There were reports that she was having trouble with her foot being stuck to the pedal, which was an interesting report there kind of towards the end of the race there, but managed to finish the race under power in the 32nd spot out of the bottom 5. I'd say that's a kudos to her corner there as well. And indeed, the first thing that changed things around was, of course, the big wreck on lap 7. Pretty much the only major multi-car accident we had. We had like 1 and 2 car incidents pretty much the rest of the day after this. But after the rain started coming down, Kyle Busch was getting a little bit more brave with his brakes and his aggression. Going into turn 1, though, the car just swapped ends on him, and he was just a complete passenger at that point. Just bowled over about a half dozen cars there, destroyed Kyle Larson's car. Serious damage to A.J. Allmendinger's car, rear damage to Justin Haley's. Zane Smith also getting a lot of damage and kind of a chain reaction deal with Chase Briscoe there. Several cars to the pit road, and that ended up being your last place battle. Zane Smith got back on the track in a very unusual situation. Zane was in last for a moment, and then actually was told by NASCAR to go into the garage area to the damaged vehicle policy region. Now, they usually do that where, the time runs out after, 7 minutes or so, and they tell you to finish off your repairs in the garage area. It doesn't mean you're out of the race now. It means you can actually complete repairs. But what was very unusual, and this was the video clip I posted without sound earlier today, is he was directed in there. He drove in right at the turn 1 direction pit exit entrance into the garage, basically drove 1 lap around the infield and drove right back out and back onto the track. Now, I don't know if NASCAR just requires that if the time runs out, even if you're completing repairs and you're pretty much set, you have to just make an appearance back there. I hope it's not something like that, because that's just pretty silly. If your repairs take 7 minutes and 10 seconds and you're just coming off pit road, do you really have to add an extra penalty on top of it? It seems like you could do it differently. You can just have them do a stop and go, which they did on top of that. He had to serve that the lap after he came back out on track. But that was kind of a bizarre situation there. And ultimately, it left Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, the two Kyles, parked next to each other in the garage area, very reminiscent of COTA with a large pit building behind it, and right next to the stadium section, actually. If you kind of went up the other direction, kind of where they showed the 38 car turnaround, you could see where the stadium was and the Amazon Prime display and their studio kind of set up over there as well. But Zane got back on the track, so it comes down to Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson. Both teams looked like they were continuing to work, but then about lap 28 or so, Kyle Busch's team seemed like they were just stopping to work. There weren't any of them working on the front of the car anymore, with the hood still up. and ultimately moments later, they did declare themselves out of the race. Don't know what the exact nature of the damage was, but given the fact that he was one that skated into these other cars, had some very serious damage with, it looked like the left rear of the car in particular took a heavy blow from that impact. It just became too much for them to repair, and ultimately fell out of the race. Now, Kyle Larson, on the other hand, ended up losing 37 laps after his incident, did get back out there right at the end of stage 2, and in fact, as was reported by Steve Letarte, did get the fastest lap bonus. So I would say an incredible recovery for Kyle Larson and the Hendrick Motorsports team. And if there was ever a team that was going to recover from that kind of damage, it was probably going to be Hendrick Motorsports, and it was probably going to be that number 5 team. And they did. And Cliff Daniels and the team should be applauded for that. I don't get the sour grapes from Steve Letarte. It's like, oh, well, it should be somebody just on the lead lap that gets that point. Oh, it should just be like somebody that needs it. It's like, oh, yeah, well, you know what they could do? They could go faster, Steve. How about that? Yeah, you want to be faster than this other guy? Try something like that. I don't get it. Why are we always making these excuses for other drivers not being as good as somebody else out there? It's the same problem we had when Kyle Larson was dominating all the races earlier this year, or when Christopher Bell won 3 races in a row. As Denny Hamlin put it on his live stream, it's our fault for not performing. It's a competition. Like, I mean, I don't like, this is why I've never really been big on like entitlements or certainties in this sport. Why I don't like the win and you're in, why I don't like the playoff system. Like, it's just absurd. It's like, you get this thing. You have to actually earn your way along. And if you're not good enough, you're not good enough. It sucks to suck. I mean, that's just the way it is. And it would be the same in any other sport. All these other entitlements and things like that, was going to be a different kind of situation that it stops being a sport. And I know there's plenty of people that have said as much with a lot of these things there too. So if Kyle Larson comes out there and they fix the car and he runs laps faster than Shane Van Gisbergen that's dominating the race, that may very well be why Van Gisbergen had such a big lead at the end of this race, is he was probably trying to get that bonus point back. And that's great. We shouldn't shy away from that. We should encourage that. We should have that become the storyline, and then really ramp that up. So I don't get this short-sightedness of it. It's the trivializing of the sport here that beckons complaints like that. Same thing with like, oh, does Shane Van Gisbergen belong in the playoffs? We shouldn't even be having that conversation. It's like we should just be happy that he won a cup race. And okay, maybe he's having a terrible season where in a full season points championship, he'd be 30th in points or something, and he'd be hopelessly out of championship contention at the end of the year. But you're trying to win races. Winning races is the ultimate goal of this. If a driver goes out there and wins like 13 races, and loses the championship, you'll probably be a little bit sore about it. But I mean, how affected by it? Hard to say. I mean, winning the championship's a nice bonus, but these drivers want to win races. They want to go out there and compete and beat other drivers. And that's the way it should be. These guys are competitors. It's sometimes easy to forget about that because there's this kind of soap opera look at, motorsports in general, and the personality is like, this guy doesn't like this guy. And, he remembers this thing from that. Look, at the end of the day, they want to just go out there and beat each other. And that's what they want to do. And I think that's why some of these media segments get so awkward sometimes. They get asked questions like that. And I think some of these debates are just ridiculous. And unfortunately, they are a consequence of the system that is in place. But, under the letter of the rule, he's going to be in the playoffs. And if somebody else is like bumped out, they're more deserving of being in the playoffs because, he's, what about this guy that's 17th in points? It's like, well, he should have been 16th in points. Like, you only got yourself to blame. I mean, Christopher Bell, I think, came out very magnanimous at the end of this race. And, it's just like, look, I mean, he's looking at things that he needs to figure out where was that, 16 or however second deficit it was for the lead, where he could have been better. Was it on pit stops? Was it on his lap speeds? Was it on when he switched between wet weather, dry weather tires? Or, trying to figure that out. Because again, the end goal of all this is trying to win these races. And if you win enough races, the points will take care of themselves. And, you put together the best overall year, that should be the championship. And that's why a full season championship's the most fair example of this. Whatever the point system is, if it's 5 points for winning, if it's 48 points for winning, if it's 185 again under the Latford system, it's still getting the most points. So I think that if you and Kyle Larson deserved just as much of the excellence there for being that much further back in the pack. Hell, it's quite an improvement from where he was at Darlington, where he came back out after another early crash and then ended up getting involved in another crash later on that that dropped him out. It was a much better situation this time around, where perhaps they even learned from that and were able to put together a car that was even faster on the track. So they should be rewarded. When somebody wins a competition, we should be happy for them. We should be, that should be the whole point of this, honestly. If we start losing touch with that, then I think we got to really ask ourselves some hard questions about what exactly we're watching there. And again, I think it's a big takeaway from this. So much like that, again, with Kyle Larson getting back out there after pretty serious damage and actually looked like he was probably going to be out of the race there. With Kyle Busch, it definitely deserves a mention there on that. But for Kyle Busch there at the same time, rough deal for him. His losing streak continues. The most recent Xfinity winner at the Mexico track before this race, before yesterday's race specifically with Suarez's victory, ends up having a short day. There was somebody, I think it was Steve Toronto, put out a post about the fewest laps Busch has completed in a Cup Series race. Fewest since that infamous race at New Hampshire, where there was rain on the track and the damaged vehicle policy pretty much took him out. Kind of an interesting situation that played out. We have no issues in tech already. Let's check that. And we'll go into that at the same time. Yep, there it is. 35 seconds ago. Wow, you guys are fast. 35 seconds ago from Bob Huckverse's page, tech is complete. No issues. Shane Van Gisbergen is the winner. No cars to R&D. That's very interesting as well. I would almost think maybe they want to look at Larson's cars, figure out how they made that thing so dang fast, but that is not the case. And Van Gisbergen's your winner, so Kyle Busch will be the subject of the article later tonight, which is good because I got most of that drafted this afternoon. Let's see. I kind of want to look through the rest of the field here. Didn't really talk about Ryan Truex too much. Kudos to him for getting back out there and running his first Cup race since 2014. He was probably in, aside from the drivers that were sick and Gragson in the backup car being sick, and in that backup car, probably had the most difficult situation of everybody out there in this one. Hasn't run a Cup race since 2014. Gets out there. I mean, he has won those Xfinity races the last couple of years. Good to have him on standby. And, he was ready as best he could be. Had a couple of spins out there, one that drew the caution, and finished in the 23rd spot. Looking at the results here, it felt like he was way worse than that. It felt like he was back about to be a lap down, if not in the 30s there. So again, not the best performance out there, but put a fine effort together. And I guess this kind of dovetails into the other discussion point that came up this week about a full season championship and, the medical waiver and so forth. Again, is there any particular problem with Denny Hamlin taking a week, taking at least a race off here for the birth of his child? I mean, no, of course not. Now I think in a full season championship, though, at the same time, maybe that would be something that would just be, it was a trickier situation in those eras because, if you missed a race, especially when it got up to about 36 races a year, you just lose too much ground. I mean, if you had a dominant Jeff Gordon-like season, you couldn't really afford to have something like that happen. I mean, that would be kind of a different deal there. And that would be a drawback to doing a full season championship. I would hate that, somebody has something, whether, a very happy, very positive situation like it is with Hamlin here, or God forbid something, or if it was a situation where they had to be pulled away from the track for an injury or something else there, that could happen, and Bill Elliott used to get hurt at Talladega, or, Davey Allison for his famous championship push and having to get in the car and then step out and have relief drivers take over for him in races. That stuff does factor into it. And that is the drawback to a full season championship. But again, that could happen, at one point or another there too. So, Obviously, family matters like that. I mean, can you really plan that out very well over a racing season? No. I mean, within, some reasonableness there, but again, is there any, I saw there was some buzz about like the medical waiver on that. I didn't understand that, honestly. I mean, it's like, okay, well, I mean, look, well, you're going to force him to, make this long journey down to Mexico for this, after that, especially with Hamlin not really being a big fan of the road courses. No, I don't think there's an issue there. I think the issue I do have on that end is the only issue, and it has nothing to do with Hamlin and nothing to do with the family. It just shows that, once you've won races in this playoff system, just nothing else matters, in that sense. And this is a case here where, yeah, it should matter. It shouldn't be, a situation there. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more like in competition on the track under ideal circumstances. If a driver has 3 wins, but then maybe, fails to finish the next 3 races or something like that. It used to be that would be a big deal in a full season championship. And that would be really interesting because it's like, oh, wow, what's going on there? Jimmy Johnson used to kind of have the thing every year when he would go for the championship during his streak, where suddenly his performance would kind of drop off in July and August, and then he'd pick right back up where he was in September. It's like, wow, how'd that happen? It's like, well, they were pretty much trying some different things in that stretch run there. Maybe some things that just didn't work out, or, not stressing them as much. And that became kind of an expendable part of the year. And now we have it where pretty much after you've won a race, it's just like you're on to the playoffs, and we're just watching numbers move across the screen there too. So, yeah, kind of a different situation. Oh, we already have our last place finisher in IndyCar too. That's interesting. Oh my goodness. Well, that was quick too. Kind of an interesting situation. But yeah, there you go, Ryan Idius. Yeah, you have a very good point. Under a full season point system, Chase Elliott's having a great year. Yeah, again, consistency is much like what I was going into earlier about, being happy for somebody accomplishing something. Consistency is an accomplishment. It's not settling for it. I mean, when Matt Kenseth won 1 race, you don't think that he was trying to win 5, 6 races like he did just the year before? Yeah, of course he was trying to. It just didn't work out for one reason or another. And you had to just, salvage the best points that you could. And that's just the name of the game there. And it's really not that much different now. When you, with the current drivers, the way they are, if you add this playoff system, removing it from that, you just don't, you create a block from that. You create something that distances ourselves from that. But I've hammered that enough already on here. But you got a very good point, Ryan Idius, and I think that's a definitely another way to look at it with these drivers. So yeah, we'll have that kind of shake out here. So looking at the back of the field here again, Carson Hocevar, Ty Dillon rounded out the bottom 5. Zane Smith had further issues in the drivetrain that dropped him out of the race there in the 35th spot. So a short afternoon for those. Ryan Preece was really impressive in the race today. Outside pole sitter, looking to get his first win after that second place run was stripped away from him at Talladega there a couple months ago. He looked really good out there, had that glance off the outside wall, or the inside wall rather, going into the stadium section, kept right on going. That was impressive. Kudos to the Prime crew for catching that. They got so many good moments of racing in the pack. And this is a race right here where, if Fox had been doing it, we would have missed so much action that was happening out there, the way they've currently broadcasted it. And I thought they did a fine job of what was there. Yeah, again, that's about all I have to say on the Cup one. I'll kind of dovetail this into the Xfinity race because I've already kind of touched on it with Suarez's win. Yeah, tremendous deal there for his victory there. I was concerned coming to the end of it when he got pushed off course in turns 1 and 2 in that chicane. NASCAR looked like they were going to be really, really hard on that because they did that whole video earlier in the week that was posted saying like, okay, well, if you cut the course, then you have to stop in this Joker lane off the track here. And if you don't stop, it's going to be a 30-second penalty. It's like, oh my God. It'd be terrible to have that color this the same way. But much like with Dale Jr. in 2003 at Talladega, where he was forced below the line, racing Matt Kenseth, ultimately the penalty wasn't called. And, in that case, that was the situation there. But regardless, Suarez with a hell of a run there at the end. That car was pretty well damaged too. Even though it was the backup car, the nose of that car looked pretty well beat up too. And he just willed that thing up there and led 19 laps and pulled off that win. So really cool to see. I'm glad that that was probably one of the best case scenarios that NASCAR could hope for in this. And indeed, we even got a taste of it in today's race when he led a lap briefly coming through turns 1 and 2. He had a really good battle with Ty Gibbs there in the chicane and was able to lead for a moment. So that was really good to see. And as I said on social media, I think one of the best things I think Adam Alexander had a decent call to finish. I like that he hit the note just perfectly. There's a little glimmer of it there. When Suarez crossed the line, he like captured the story and told kind of the story of it, of him very well. And then at that moment, just backed up and just stopped saying anything. Just like all three of them in the booth, just stopped saying anything. And he just got to listen to the crowd. You got to see Suarez talk to the crowd. That was good. That was probably the high point of the weekend, really. The way that was all shown and allowed to breathe. It was like reminiscent of one of those old Indy 500 broadcasts where it comes down to two guys and you're seeing, the families nervous, on pit road, and you're cutting back and forth and they're getting closer and trying to set up those moves. That was really cool, and I think that Alan Bestwick in particular has been very outspoken in saying that, knowing when not to talk is even more important than, knowing when you should. And that's not easy to understand. I will freshly admit that that's something I'm still figuring out. But I think in this case here, it was done to perfection. That was really, really cool to see. And I think anything that happened in the Cup race at that point was going to be a bonus. And I think whoever was there got their money's worth because they were very physical out there. And it'll be interesting. I know Jeff Gluck pointed out a lot of people in the stands were wearing Formula One gear or it didn't look like they were wearing NASCAR merch. But it's not like they're not aware of the sport or not aware of Daniel Suarez or perhaps other drivers. Todd Gilliland had a massive entourage around him coming to the racetrack today, and that was really cool to see. I imagine, we come back and do another one of these races in another year. You're going to see more people, wearing the merch out there and stuff. And so that would be good to see. And, hopefully people get some Harris Lou or some Ryan Daly merch out there and get seen more. Some of the soccer jerseys and stuff they showed, the Fanatics hauler was pretty cool. But, again, I think that I hope, I don't know what was going on there. I hope that they kind of really leaned into some of the other designers out there that are so talented out there. I mean, many that have been involved in designing this merch to really lean into that. I know that the Fanatics angle has not been the most popular. Of course, they've had that whole deal with Major League Baseball not long ago. And some of that can be kind of same in that sense there. But maybe they'll get some feedback from this week and kind of build into that. Maybe that'll just, make everything better on that end. So we'll find out if that's going to be the case there too. But Taylor Gray, very close second, Austin Hill in third, completing the podium. Christian Eckes in fourth after a disastrous start to this year. Started 34th in the race and finished in fourth. A massive improvement for him. That was a good turnaround there. And Connor Zilic looked like he had this race in his back pocket, leading 17 laps, ended up finishing in the fifth spot there. Didn't work out for him. Zilic and Gibbs were really, really good on Saturday. So much fun to watch. Unfortunately, didn't work out for either of them this time around. Good to see Austin Green back in the top 10. Very good on the road courses with the Peterson group and their support there with the Jordan Anderson team. They're putting together some more good runs. Green's really been struggling on the road, the ovals lately as he's tried to expand his schedule. So going back to a road course and having a run that we're more familiar with him having in that 32 is, I'm sure, a shot in the arm, as was Jeb Burton, his teammate there in the 8th spot there in the top 10. Harrison Burton coming back from a spin to finish in the 9th spot, and Sammy Smith rounding out the top 10. Last place battle in this one here was intense in a very different way. One of the first drivers that ended up having problems, Daniel Suarez, was actually almost collected in a wreck before the race even started. Not mentioning his qualifying incident, but Thomas Annunziata in the Cope Family Racing entry, exiting the stadium portion of the track, almost collected the 9 car again before the start of this race and could have been eliminated from the race before it even started. But ultimately, both those drivers continued going. You had kind of a trade-off between the both of them. Sam Mayer slid into a barrier with the driver's side of his car. He was okay. They actually managed to get that car back going. Where did he actually finish in this race? Did he climb back in? He wasn't in the top 10, but he was he a bit further back? I saw him a second ago. 23rd in the finishing order there for the Audubell machine there. So a decent recovery on the lead lap, in fact, there for the Haas factory team effort. But then you had multiple drivers that were having mechanical issues at the exact same time. Drivers that dropped into the garage area. You had a transmission issue for Justin Allgaier. This was right after another transmission issue for Jeremy Clements, and both of them in the garage area at the exact same time. And then Ruben Ravello had a mechanical issue as well. So you had all three of these cars in the garage area, and all three of them returned to the track. So again, as physically demanding as this track was, as mechanically demanding as it was really exciting to watch this last place battle. I really had fun writing the article yesterday as all three of them got back into the race and had a decent finish, under the circumstances. Actually, you got Clements climbing up to 36th, Allgaier up to 34th, and Ravello ending up in the 37th spot there, last of that group. But all three of them passing Brennan Poole and Christopher Bell. Bell blew an engine, and I don't know why it's Steve Letarte I seem to butt heads with when it comes to his thoughts in the booth here. But I don't know why he expressed such surprise at Christopher Bell jumping out of the car when he had to sit in it smoking and smoldering at the entrance of pit road with the engine blown on that thing and waiting for the caution to come out, the caution not coming out. The car pulled off in a safe spot that he could get out of the car, and indeed did. He did insist, Bell did in his interview, that it was not from a missed shift, from adjusting to the H pattern after running the sequential shifter in the Cup Series. But regardless, a short afternoon for Christopher Bell. His first last place run since 2019, back when he was full-time in the Xfinity Series and got disqualified from a race. And his first start for a team other than Joe Gibbs in the Cup Series, or in the Xfinity Series, rather. He ran for the Levine family team in the Cup Series. But the first time in the Xfinity Series, really, driving for Sam Hunt, ended up being a short afternoon for him after a couple of spins, one of which he backed into the outside wall and ended up being further back in the lineup there. So C-Bell ends up in the 39th spot there. Brennan Poole with what sounded like an axle issue. According to some reports online there, it's listed as a suspension problem there. Ravello in the 37th spot, Clements in 36. Parker Retzlaff continues to really struggle. I've been, ever since that runner-up front finish at Rockingham, it's been all bad for that 4 team and some of the other Alpha Prime teams as well. I mean, Poole, of course, in the bottom 5 there also. Just a rough weekend for them. Retzlaff getting collected in that big accident in turns 1 and 2. Pretty big stack up after Zilich's run went sideways when he got spun out. Retzlaff ended up being in the 35th spot there, running out the bottom 5. Sage Karam looked like he had a good run going in the early stages. He ended up getting crash damage as well for the Joey Gase team, ends up back in 33rd. An unfortunate deal for him. Ryan Sieg, we didn't see him as much of a factor in this. Seemed to be towards the back of the field, had at least one spin as well. He ends up in the 29th spot behind his brother Kyle. Josh Bilicki in the 24th spot there, and a one-off there for the SS Greenlight team. We'd seen him drive for the Mario Gosselin team, of course, in his most recent starts. Alex LeBay, kind of an overlooked 15th place finish. He's always one to watch at the road courses. I felt like the road course contingent in the Xfinity race was very strong in this one, and it made for an interesting race the way it played out. Brad Perez back in 26th. There again, pretty much best in class for the Tommy Joe Martins team there for the Alpha Prime deal, but a bit further back there as well. But again, I think that Xfinity race just about had just about everything else to check out there at the same time. Looks like everybody's having. Oh, we have somebody that's coming back into the IndyCar race. Wow, we're really going to get an interesting. Oh goodness, somebody tripped trying to get an interview there with that too. Oh, goodness. Sounds like it's a pretty crazy IndyCar race. I'll have to check that out after the show here. But sounds like it's a pretty wild deal there. Hope you guys enjoyed the graphics. I had those badly translated Spanish graphics on hand here for the site back when they did the Batilla at the Coliseum, that Mexico Series race at the Coliseum. What was that, last year? Gosh, I guess it was. Yeah, year last year, or the year before. Um, I guess it was last year. They do it 3 years in the Coliseum. Or was it two? I think it was three. But regardless, whenever that was, I had those graphics made for that. I didn't have it with the car numbers like I did for the other ones, but I figured I'd bring that out. So hopefully people got a kick out of that. I want to do something a little bit special for this. I thought about doing a video on the older Mexico series, Mexico Cup Xfinity Series races coming into this one. Unfortunately, just ran out of time. I have this other project that I'm really pushing to get done here by the end of the month. So I've kind of been focusing more on that. I think that'll be worth it ultimately there. So I didn't do as much pregame for this race as I thought I would, but definitely enjoyed it though at the same time. So yeah, really just an interesting weekend in general. But I think it was definitely something to check out. Hopefully, we'll have a. I'll be interested to see what the response is. If they run this race again next year, I think there's definitely a place for it. If it starts building some tradition out there. Again, I think this track, it seemed like everybody that was there was having a good time. So that's good to hear. Again, I did have apprehensions coming into this one. And so far, and again, certainly hope everybody has safe travels back. Hopefully, that'll continue to be the case, going forward there. So, but yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Never been to Mexico myself. So I don't have too much of a frame of reference here on that. I didn't really even study Spanish in school. I studied French, so I don't have that ingrained in me here as much, despite being out here in California here at Lascar headquarters. Yeah, I'm sure I'm missing something. I feel like I'm missing something big from all this here. Yeah, definitely you can let me know in the chat there or anything else to cover at the same time. I do want to kind of show, as we're on the subject here of Mexico City and the culture out there and the excitement from this weekend, I wanted to kind of feature these quilts here behind me. I may try to move my camera a bit closer. I'll try not to make it too nauseating here for you guys, but I have a different tripod I brought out here for this that should make it a little bit more stable than the one I used for the last couple of shows here. And we'll do that. I'll put, in the meantime, while I do this, since the trivia section is usually around the same time as this, I'll bring out the late 90s deal here, and we'll do some questions here at the same time. I'll have you guys pick which category you'd like, and then I'll feature these, and then we'll jump into that. And yeah, anything else I'm missing, we'll kind of catch up on that too. Do you think NASCAR? Oh, Andrew Bremner. Do you think NASCAR should race on Father's Day weekend? By the way, happy Father's Day to all you out there if you celebrate. So certainly on that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with racing on Father's Day. I think there is a difference between Father's Day and Mother's Day, and I don't think it's just a greeting card thing. I think that it goes back to the France family, and that was just something they just didn't do. And I know that we seem to be living in an era now where tradition doesn't seem to count for anything. Or, that we're always like, oh, we got to move away from that. We got to move. Yeah, some things, they're kind of there for a reason. And for me personally, not racing on Mother's Day weekend began and ended with Adam Petty's accident in 2000. That was just too awful of a situation. And he wasn't the only driver, to lose their life in this sport and on different times of the year or anything. But that was, I mean, you don't have to just hear it from me. I mean, Rick Houston was much closer to Adam than I was, and others as well. That was a very difficult situation at the time that happened, and the time that it happened didn't help. I've not been a big fan of them, running on that, and that may say more of me than other things and all that, but I stand by that, and I think there's a difference there. Not to say that there are different feelings that fathers have about the dangers of racing or what their children take on when they compete out there. But I think some deference, is afforded, I think, in that case there. So I still stand by that. If you want to run it the night before Mother's Day, I don't have a problem with that. That's kind of a different deal there too. But it's still always been something that's been kind of a sticking point for me. And I think that's why it's probably a generational difference that maybe it's not felt as acutely beyond that. So no, I don't have a problem with it. Actually, I took I took our father out to cover to Sears Point one year for Father's Day weekend. We actually had a great time. Not every mother enjoys going to the racetrack. I think, the other one I always think of too, an example in that context is, Martha Jarrett, Dale Jarrett's mother, and how she couldn't stand to watch the race from pit road, and that she was just waiting in the infield in 1993, but listening to the radio and just relieved that it was a safe race. Rusty had, of course, a terrible accident in that, but thankfully was okay after it. But then Dale Jarrett winning that race. Just, even the person that's doing well and staying at the front of the field, it was still too much in that case there. So there is kind of a trend, and maybe it is very much connected to the southern roots of the sport or anything, and there's been a lot that's already been talked about in that context. But, it's felt just as much out here, I'd say, in California, at least to me. So, I think that's where it is. I've seen persuasive arguments on the Father's Day side of it there that, that these, crews and teams, they do work their tails off, especially this time of year where they have so few off weekends, if any, between now and Thanksgiving. But I think that's just a consequence of the sport itself. I mean, you got people in other businesses and industries that can't break away from it. And I think that people understand that. And for them, watching these races is their escape. And for people that are in the sport, it's very different. They have their own, means in there. So I think that's kind of different. So, we have an issue for Will Power. Oh, goodness. So that'd be kind of a different one. Yeah. See, there you go, Brian. Yeah. Evening before Mother's Day at Darlington was nice. That was fine. I almost called that the Southern 500 for a while when it was not the Southern 500. That was kind of interesting. You got a spring race out there. So, it could kind of be something like that too. I will say probably the one thing I would concede with the Mother's Day races is I liked when Cole Custer had that Mother's Day scheme with roses on it on the 41. Did that ever get made in die cast? That one looked really cool. I thought that was actually a pretty good paint scheme. It's like, if you're going to do that, at least have something like that. I don't know. But that's just me. We all have our hangups, and that's just one for me. Michael Jensen, I see your comment on Ty Dillon here. He had a great day. Finish wasn't, but he spent most of the stages 1 and 2 in the top 10. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I thought I didn't notice him as much in stage 2, but in stage 1 he looked really good. I would have loved if he had a great finish out there. I've been very impressed. I mentioned it in the starting grid. I think he's really been turning around that second team over the colleague team, even when they're having reliability issues and just plain bad luck on AJ Allmendinger's side. But that's kind of a different look at that there too. Ryan Moore, thank you for your message here as well. As compared to when NASCAR went to Tokyo in the late 90s, that's a good question, because the deal with the Japan races, is that was done after the season was over with. And it was, the championship had been settled. It was almost kind of a way to kind of preview the upcoming seasons. I remember that's where Elliott Sadler first drove the Wood Brothers car. It's where Dale Jr. and Dale Sr. first raced against each other, at least in Cup cars, when they were racing against each other in, I guess it was 98 for that one. It was almost kind of like a season preview in that sense. And, it was fun. I mean, the other difference was the time zone difference was so different that I know here, I remember watching the 98 race live, and I think it was started like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I'm watching on TBS. It almost felt like it was pre-recorded, like it wasn't happening live, like it wasn't something actively occurring. And of course, we didn't have social media back then, so you didn't have a way to like really engage with people. I don't remember doing like a chat room or anything at that point. So there was kind of a distance there. I think in this one here, where it's still in the North American continent, so it's on the mountain time zone here with all that worked out, where you do have social media, where you can hear the crowd and you can kind of see all that. I think this was much more engaged in that sense, and very similar to what it felt like back in 2005 when they did the Xfinity races here. I remember enjoying those. I remember seeing the first one of those. This is betrays my age here. 2005, the first race out there, that was my senior year in college. It was the spring of 2005, not long after Jeff Gordon won the Daytona 500, and seeing that on TV, and it was just really fun. I remember, did they have it? I didn't watch the whole pre-race. I remember one thing I thought was really cool is they had people bless. They had people bless the cars with holy water before the start of the race. I know they did a service before the race. They had a priest out there on on pit road and part of that. So that was cool. But I don't know if they did that on this time, but I thought that was really cool back then. It gave this wonderful. I don't mean to make this sound like it's quaint or anything, because I don't mean any disrespect in that sense. But it's just this worldly speed racer, cosmopolitan kind of aspect to it, where yeah, you're in a different country, you're working under different. You're in a different environment, you're in a different culture, and you're bringing this into it. And you got this, not a collision of it, but I mean, a synthesis of it, bringing it all together. And that's fun to see. And from what I've heard, again, I'm sure there's, some that maybe enjoyed it more than others. I'm sure people, there's probably some people, some of those drivers that are still, feeling a bit ill after just this week here. But whether it's, the difference in elevation, I think that was good that they played that up in the broadcast and explained the consequences of it. But again, it sounds like it was a very positive experience, and I certainly hope so, because the sport needs that. And, again, I don't see this sport becoming an entirely international sport. Maybe it has a couple of these, kind of in the similar sense to way road courses used to be, where you just had one or two of them. Now we have 6 or 7 road courses, and maybe we have 1 or 2 international races. I don't see a problem with that. And yeah, the possibility of an international exhibition, like we had with Japan or even Australia. I mean, Australia kind of happened a couple weeks into the year in '88. Brian, you would know more about that than I would, but that was kind of that period there where, it was, a departure from the season, but still kind of on such a different part of the world that it didn't feel like a live ongoing thing. So a good question. I think it was an interesting way to kind of break that out at the same time there. It sounds like this IndyCar race is pretty wild. I'm seeing all these comments there on that, but that'll be something else to look at here at the same time. So did I open the floor for categories? I don't know if I did. I can do that. I need to. Oh, good. Oh, we had a couple super chats. Thank you for the super chats here, folks. I'll jump in on those there as well. We'll get to this at the same time. So, again, we'll bring out the late 90s deal here, and we'll do some features on this. Maybe what I'll do is I'll have you guys pick the categories, and then I'll step away. We'll do the loading screen so I can kind of test what the camera looks like here for a bit. And we'll look at, we'll do some show and tell, and then we'll jump back into it and do some trivia here for the show, and then we can pick up from there. Does that sound okay for you guys? We'll jump into that in just a moment. Okay, so again, the categories are NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. I don't know why I need to still read these off here, but it's the order of it now that I pretty much memorized. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Mention in the chat which category you'd like, and I'll do a couple questions here to wrap up the show. So I'm going to step away for just a moment here, and we'll do some show and tell. We'll jump in there and go from there. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just off camera here. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of show this at the same time. I'm kind of, let's see, make sure I don't trip over these cables here. But yeah, I wanted to kind of show some of these quilts here I had in the background. I know you couldn't really see this one as clearly from where I was standing. I'm going to kind of move back into shot here. We'll bring the camera here. But yeah, my mom brought these quilts here. You've seen the background. You've seen the NASCAR one on this side and some other ones here. But I just really wanted to kind of show some of the aspects on this one here. Always, this one here has very much a theme of like Day of the Dead and the sugar skulls, kind of like you see with a lot of the promotions. You saw the totem that Daniel Suarez actually received coming into this race. Had like the little skeleton figure with the race suit on and the helmet. So kind of a similar style here. Halloween's always very big here at LASCAR headquarters. Day of the Dead there as well. So I want to kind of show, some of the graphics. I'll take some pictures here, and you'll see that on the social media page here after. But just kind of was going to show this. Let me see how much closer I can get the camera here. Maybe I can just take it off. I don't want to shake the camera here too much. But we'll bring it back over. That is kind of about as far as that cable goes. All right. So yeah, let's see, how well is this show on screen? It shows kind of okay. Yeah, there you go. Kind of got some of the graphic here kind of in the middle. Where was the... Oh, yeah, the sugar skull portion of it. I know there was this up here. Does that show on screen? Nope, that's different. Let's see. Is my hand up on there? Let's bring that up here. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, kind of this section here. This one has some sparkle effects on that one. It's kind of interesting. So just kind of knowing where some of the decorations are in the house here. There we go. Yeah, on this piece here. Yeah, there we go. So you got kind of some of that there. I think we had luchador masks on one of these. I know there's another one here around the corner. I'll show you that. This one has on the black fabric down here. So always this kind of collage pattern. She likes doing like these designs with like small squares of designs and then try to find a similar enough color scheme. See, I'm colorblind, so I couldn't really tell you what the best combination of this is here. But again, yeah, very creative with kind of this design here again, kind of that. And definitely want to kind of, you're setting up for the show and telling about the race in Mexico City. It's like, hey, we got some good designs here for the background of the show. Let's definitely make sure to do that. So wanted to call attention to some of that here on the show here too. So let me bring this out. I got another one here on this, and I'll show you. And again, I got pictures that'll make this a little easier to see here. Apologies for moving the camera around. I think this one here, bring the microphone back over. Try not to knock that desk over. All right, how's that show on screen? Okay, it's a little high up. We'll bring that back down here. There we go. All right, let's look at this. One of these days, I'm going to figure out the best way to do... I mean, I guess I could just stream from my phone. That would probably be a better way to do this, but we'll figure that out. Look at this design here, too. So we got, again, kind of some other ones on this. Always kind of a combination of California designs. Got some of the, like the caution tape kind of brought on this one. Very wild. I'll tell you this, true story. I think I might have told this before, but it's relevant to this this part here. There was one time at Sears Point, we were covering the race, and we came back, and it was really late at night, and I was just kind of just dropping my stuff on my bed there, and we had one of these quilts on there, and I was trying to find my keys, and I couldn't find them, and I had to kind of brush my hand over the quilt because I dropped them right on the quilt, and I couldn't see it because the pattern was so eclectic that I couldn't find the thing. So, but I mean, again, it was a good problem to have because these are always very colorful. She likes using glow-in-the-dark fabric, too, which is fun. It wouldn't show on the screen here very well, but I know there were a couple pieces we had on here that were kind of a part of that, too. Again, kind of a little bit of fun here with this. I'll kind of bring this closer so you can kind of see some of the individual designs on this. And we'll get back to our racing coverage here in just a short bit. Let's see, where was it? Oh, yeah, we had the tarot cards on the border on this one. That was pretty hip. That's what these are. They kind of look like postage stamps. Let's see if I can bring that a little bit. There we go. There we go. Okay, let's see. We can bring that into focus. Let's see. Try to bring that back. There we go. Is that a little better? I don't want it to be too fuzzy for you guys. I'll do some pictures here along the way so you can kind of see some of this better. But yeah, kind of this skull pattern. But again, sugar skulls. Here we go. Oh, there's the luchador masks on this one. There's kind of this pattern here. There you go. So yeah, it's like, yeah, we were talking about Mexico City. It's like, oh yeah, I got designs here. Definitely on that. So yeah, it's just kind of a fun deal here with this. But that was the thing. She had a brand for this here originally. She called them Dark Heart Quilts was her brand. She doesn't sell them at the moment. We try to get into something like that at some point along the way there. Maybe there'll be something still in the future there, but right now, I think that what usually happens is, especially design like this, she just really enjoys it. Doesn't want to let it go. It's just like really nice, but it's good to show them off so they're not just sitting, just not sitting on a bed or sitting in a cabinet or anything like that. So she definitely wanted to make sure that we had that on the show here. So I hope you don't mind the bit of a departure from our usual racing coverage on here, but I'll share some pictures for those of you interested afterwards, and you can kind of see some of those details here. I'm going to get this set up and point the camera back in the right way, and we will be back to our trivia section here in just a moment. So you'll stare in amazement at the chair here as I get everything pointed back in the right direction. All right. But yeah, we had a couple of different ones. We have I think there's 2 quilts. We had a different one in the background. I'm trying to remember which one was originally back there. But yeah, that's something that's very big on this. You've seen already the NASCAR quilt with the 1994 fabrics. That was on the other side of the room. You'll notice in the recent shows I've been sitting back on this side because that's usually where Last Bro sits. He has kind of a setup there he's pretty comfortable with, and I don't want to keep disrupting that, so we're making that work. Alrighty. We're going to have to kind of figure this out live on air. And whoop, I think I tangled this up. Hang on. Let's unplug that. Oop. Okay. All right. Okay. Hopefully I don't trip over this cable live on air. That wouldn't be too much fun. All right. So, where am I? Oh, the camera's pointing a completely different direction. Okay, let's try to get that back going. Alrighty. Awesome. No, thank you guys. I appreciate you enjoying the artwork. A little something different. I always like trying to do something for our show and tell segments here on the show here. We may have something else here in the near future for one of our later episodes. So stay tuned for that. Well, I'm sure we will. There's always something new to discuss here. I'm going to turn this back around. There we are. Now we're back. Bring that down here, back to me. Back to here. That's okay. There's a table. Oh, okay, good. It came back in focus. There you go. You can see it a little better. Which way am I pointing? Okay, no, there's the one. That's the last one. The luchador one's over there. And get this back here. All right. Okay, let's bring the mic back down here. Okay, we have categories here. Looks like I saw a couple picks for categories on this. I do need to get into super chats as well, so we'll do that in this segment for chat. Let's find out. Oh, okay, it's a little bit too high. I always have it just right. I was tuning with this, but I'm very happy with this. This is actually probably the oldest tripod in my collection. I use this tripod. Here's one for you longtime viewers. Remember that starting grid I did back in 2010 for the Toyota Save Mart 350, and I was recording footage of the cars coming by and qualifying in turn 2. I used this tripod. I didn't know there was a rule that you couldn't bring tripods in the stands, but luckily so few people were there. It didn't really matter. But I was just there as a fan at the time. and I use this tripod to film those segments, and it has a handle on the side of it. It doesn't move as smoothly. I remember distinctly, I picked this one up over at the Fry's Electronics. Fry's Electronics doesn't even exist anymore, but I picked this one up, and it worked really well. But it's very steady, and it doesn't, shake around a lot. So it's perfect for setting something like this up where you don't want the camera getting all fluky on you there. But it doesn't move smoothly from side to side. And I remember seeing this other guy had like one like that. It's like, that was costing too much. So I went with this. But I'll tell you what, that was 2010. I've had this for 15 years. And so far, knock wood, it's still held the test of time here. I think I've used like 3 different cameras on this. I used an actual camcorder on this before for that segment back in 2010. So if you look up the 2010 Toyota Save Mart 350 starting grid, it'll be with the tripod you're watching this video from today. So a little bit of history there on that send, or a little bit of, I guess, equipment history. But yeah, I'm very happy with this one there too. So hopefully that'll work very well. So yeah, so again, thank you for enjoying the little art segment here as well. Again, I think that's a big part of this weekend. Is I love the colors. I think they were really kind of showing that. I know Matt Weaver looked like he had just the best time out there, showing the restaurants and stuff in the area. Him and Jerry Jordan and stuff going to the Luchador match and stuff. That looked great. So I hope people are always having a great time, and I hope a lot of new fans were made out there that maybe wouldn't have watched NASCAR before, or maybe just wanted to know what it was about. So I hope that that's something that's going to be something that endures, and I guess we'll find out year to year if this does become a much larger event. So we'll find out. Let's see here. Where are we with this? Cameraman is okay, but the camera won't make the DVP clock. Oh, that's not good. Oh, dear. St. Easter, power steering. Okay, we got one for wild card, one for teams, one for tracks, one for pits. We're kind of all over the place here. Let's see here. Does anybody else have a count on this? I don't think we have more than those. I think it was only 4 votes I see on this. Oh, Marcus, your sister's birthday. Happy birthday to your sister. You're watching Pixar's Cars. Oh, you're doing it right. Doing it right. That's fun. Brian, you're very right. Yeah, NASCAR wants to be international again, but they are in worse shape now than what they tried it last time. That's true. That is unfortunately true. I think at this point, what they're probably doing is they're probably looking for ways to get back in. I mean, they would have never admitted this, because what was it? Bill France Jr. said that you can only get bigger. You're either getting bigger or you're getting smaller. There's no staying the same or something. They got smaller when they're right sizing the grandstands, and they got rid of some venues. They're now clamoring for trying things that work, and they found some things that have. Bringing Wilkesboro back, potentially bringing Rockingham back again. We'll see where that sale goes. We're now hearing about Matt Tifft picking up Mansfield. How exciting that is, and maybe the potential of some more racing there. Again, I can only hear Donnie Leah and Rick Allen's voice from that amazing race back then. Again, it'll be it'll be interesting, but yeah, nowadays it's almost they're trying just radically different things as much as possible. But we'll find out how much it pays off. It would be interesting. I think a race in Japan would be fun. I see Jude Fernandez. I see your comment on that. Yeah, if they came back out there and did Suzuka Circuit Land or something of that nature, again, I think NASCAR hit on something where they at least felt. Now I don't know how logistically possible it is or how many times they can do it. It seems like they're able to do it at least once a year, that they want to put all their eggs in the basket. This is why, when last time I was at Phoenix, I guess that was 23, or was it 22? 22 or 23. I think there was one year that all they talked about was Chicago street course. Like, oh my God, this race is going to be amazing. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Or there's another year where it's like, oh, we're going to do the race in the Coliseum. It's like, yes, it's going to be amazing. And then there was the Mexico City race. And it's like, yeah, they have like the one thing that they just can't stop talking about. And I guess it's the one thing that they can do each year. How much money they've made from selling the property where Fontana was, or whatever whatever else they're moving around, yeah, who knows? Yeah, Hickory would be good. South Boston, yeah. I mean, watching those. See, again, I mentioned on the show, I didn't really follow the old Busch series that much, which I know is, you know, I know that they had like a tremendous era back then, and it was interesting to relive that in a bit from the Dale Jr. documentary or the Dale Sr. documentary. I keep calling it the Junior documentary, even though it's really the whole family. But the deal on Amazon and showing just Junior's ascendancy through the Busch series and the other talent that was around back then. Um, yeah, I didn't really follow those as closely. I love the Cup races. I wanted to see the Cup races and the Cup guys at Cup tracks. But it's great being able to watch these now in hindsight and catch up on it. There's a little bit of this project I'm working on now that has a little overlap with that too, to kind of see the way it used to be. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the short track in Fontana either. I don't know. I'd love to go back down there. It's so sad. I mean, I grew up not really enjoying. I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I'm of two minds of it. The first couple years, hearing about the track and seeing the racing there, I'm not a big fan of like Michigan and stuff growing up. Although Michigan's really come into its own, and it had a fantastic race just last week. Um, the Fontana track was not something I aspired to go visit its first few years, which is unfortunate because the first couple of years it actually had some really good races into like the early 2000s. It really didn't transfer well during the Twisted Sister and especially the Car of Tomorrow era. And then the Next Gen era also wasn't very good. And then we finally started visiting the track towards the end of that era in 2018. And of course, it was only on the circuit just a few more years. And it was unfortunate because it was very easy to get down there, very affordable. It wasn't a difficult drive to get down from here at LASCAR headquarters down there. And we enjoyed it. And we stayed the same hotel all the time. And it was, it would cost like $500 for the weekend or whatever. And it was great. We enjoyed doing it, but it's sad to lose that. And I'd love if they have another venue out there. But I'm sure people, when Riverside closed, felt the same way, or when Ontario closed, or anything like that. And there's just so much urban sprawl down there. I don't know, even with the plots that they've kept, I don't know what's possible there. But it would be nice if they do something. I'd love to be there. I'd be there with bells on. I'll tell you that, because I'd love to see whoever's the last place finisher of those races. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm with you. I really don't know. It certainly doesn't seem to be a top priority. I think NASCAR has said as much recently, but that would be another one to look at the same time. We'll do some wild card questions. I saw another vote for wild card here, so we'll jump into that. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Here we have a pet question. Badger hasn't stumbled in here yet, but that'll probably be something further along here. What driver has a yellow Labrador Retriever named Short Track? That's our first question here for tonight. What driver has a yellow Labrador Retriever named Short Track? That is our question. Is it 8:20? No, it's 6:20. I thought it was way later than it was. Okay, that's good. I don't want to keep you guys too long there. There's buzz about Chicagoland coming back. That would be interesting. We'll see. 1.5 to 2 miles were great when the speeds were down. Yeah, I mean, that made it better. I mean, we're kind of experiencing that now to an extent with this car. I mean, again, I thought the last couple races at Fontana with the next gen car were fantastic. We went out there and then, after coming back from COVID and then having the two races out there, and they put on a show. Suarez and Jones being so good that first year, and then the last time there with Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain putting on a show out there. I thought they were quite good. Unfortunately, it just didn't turn out that way. What driver has a yellow Labrador Retriever named Short Track? That is the question. No, I'm afraid it's not me, Death Killer. But we're talking about late 90s questions here as well. Mike Skinner, Rusty Wallace, Ward Burton. Lots of good guesses. I need to get into super chats here too. I'll jump into that at the same time. I love the play-by-play on the IndyCar here too. You always seem to have trouble here getting a good window here for these shows here, but we'll figure that out. For those who like to tune in, we'll still be doing them, and we'll go from there. We got some exciting races coming up. We're not too far from Sears Point now, less than a month. Very good. We got the vacation days off at work. We got the KOA booked for out there. We're going to do some there. I'm going to try. I don't have a full plan on this yet. I don't know if it'll work. But after our show at Rockingham over at the hotel there during that was a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys enjoyed it. I sure did. But hopefully things are okay. I'd love to do a show from the KOA and just kind of have some fun with that. I know they have Wi-Fi there. I don't want to be too loud for everybody out there and stuff or anything like that. So it wouldn't be too late at night. But maybe a shorter show or something like that, just to kind of touch on big stories there from the race weekend that Sunday. Maybe do something like that. So we'll figure it out. I haven't figured out a way to do. I haven't requested like a room in the media center like they do with Teardown and some of those other shows. We're not quite big enough for something like that, but maybe one of these days we'll see. So, yeah, because we actually had a pretty good setup here with my other microphone. I don't think the sound came through right in the Rockingham show. For some reason, the default on this picks up the camera's mic. And I think it's still, I listened to that clip again. I think that was a problem there too. I think it didn't pick up because I basically have a mic like this that's portable that I use at the racetrack. It's the one I had in my vest when I was at Talladega and Rockingham. So that'll probably be the way to go. So hopefully that'll work better. That would be good to see. What driver, we got to go back to the question here. What driver has a yellow Labrador Retriever named Short Track? The answer is Jeff Green. It's a Jeff Green question. Jeff Green is the answer. Jeff Green is the answer a lot here. I do not have a retriever. We have 4 Chihuahuas. I had to stop for a second. We used to have 5. We have 4 Chihuahuas right now. In fact, actually, I went to a coworker's place. They did have golden retrievers, and our Chihuahuas noticed that smell right away walking in the door there for sure. So yeah, no, we have much smaller dogs here. We have big quilts and small dogs. That's what we have. Jeff Green. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I was almost starting to think Michael Waltrip maybe, but no. All right, we got good ones here. No, that one's too easy. We got a South Boston, Virginia, Ward Burton question. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Next question, what driver was named 1996 True Value Man of the Year for his leukemia charity work? What driver was named 1996 True Value Man of the Year for his leukemia charity work? It's kind of an interesting one there, too. 4 Chihuahuas, that's a lot of energy. Yeah, no kidding. That's why it bubbles over, and sometimes you'll see. We saw Badger on last week's show here. And he's always very fussy. He was on my lap here during the race today, but he got a bit too fidgety, so he went downstairs before the start of the show. You may see him next week for our Pocono show. We will see. Very fun. What driver was named 1996 True Value Man of the Year for his leukemia charity work? Here we go. The spring trip should give you room as recompense. Oh, Beast Metal. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate the support there. Yeah, but the Steve O'Donnell or the Steve Phelps interview rather was very surprising. I'm glad. I hope I made the most of that. I still feel like I had my second question was bungled a bit. I wanted to be more direct about, at least hear it from him directly about what are the circumstances that bring out a caution at the last lap. But in hindsight, there may have, it may have been for the best to not address that because Connor Zilic apparently was hurt in that accident, and it probably wasn't really the time to bring up. Neither of us would have known that at the time. But I saw Jeb Burton's crew, and they were really upset about that, the way that race played out. It was almost a funereal experience leaving the track there because every other crew was upset. You saw the 21 car finish burnouts and getting pushed behind the wall, and it was just crickets from everybody else on the grid. It's just like, nobody was happy. Nobody was happy at all. So that was kind of the different deal. Yeah, Death Killer. Yeah, I got a very, very, very brief interview with Steve Phelps. But I mean, again, I'm very critical of certain aspects of the sport, but I will always give Steve Phelps credit that at Talladega, after the race and after he talked to a very not happy Jeb Burton about that photo finish and the way that race was called at the end, that I got 3 questions off with him. And he stopped. He could have told me to, F off or something, or just ignored me or something like that. But I brought my microphone out and we got it. And I will give him credit for that. So that's, yeah, again, it's, he didn't have to do that. So I appreciate him doing that. Again, I may not see eye to eye with him on everything there, but, again, I'm not going to, yeah, I'm not going to say the dude's not going to follow up with an interview, which is good. And hopefully maybe further down the line, we'll have another interview and we'll talk about other things, and maybe that'll open the door, further down the line, and we will get into some other, topics. So we'll find out, who knows? Each one of these races is an experience. And it's also kind of an experiment in the same sense, who you can run into and all that. I mean, again, it's the Rockingham trip turned out very well. And I think we moved the needle a little bit on that. It was unfortunate, to get sick at the end of it, but the work had been done by that point. That Sunday was really more about just kind of relaxing and celebrating it there. And Lastboro had a great time and we got back okay, and that was cool. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I loved Rockingham. Rockingham was very cozy. The Easter weekend up there was gorgeous. We had, everybody was very helpful up there. We met so many people. Big thanks to Zach and over at booth 34 for the other meetup we did after the Rockingham race there that week. That was really cool. Was happy to pick up some stuff from his shop there too. Yeah, it was great. And I would love to go back out there. I'm already kind of thinking about ones to maybe do Charlotte. If Wilkesboro gets a points paying race, I would love to be there for that. I'd love to do the 600. I don't know about the Roval, maybe, something like that, or even ones in the area if we're doing like Virginia or something like that. So we'll see. But yeah, no, it went really well. It went really well. If you haven't seen the interview, if you go to my Last Car page and you look up the April archives, you'll see my interview. I did got a few questions there with him on that. I'll probably post the audio in the Patreon. I need to do that. I've been looking to do some other bonus content for the $10 level in particular, and that would probably be a good candidate for that. Yes, Jimmy, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, rest in peace to Charlie Henderson. The tragic news this week. I need to put him on my title card there for the starting grid video. I didn't do that. I had yeah, I don't believe I had him on there for that one there. So yeah, rough deal there on that one. I mean, again, Charlie Henderson, again, for that the longevity of this team is just miraculous to me. The fact that the Food Country team, I was just looking through some diecast the other night, and I had one that I picked up on the Rockingham trip of the Food Country car that Butch Miller drove, and I believe he won Bristol with in 1990, 1989, right around that era. And that 75 font, it's amazing. I saw that exact same font from that diecast on the side of one of those pit boxes when the Truck Series came out to Sears Point just a couple of years ago. And I guess it was Parker Kligerman still in the ride there that weekend. And Kligerman still winning in that ride, winning at Talladega, winning at Mid-Ohio, and having those great runs. What amazing longevity. There are teams that are dominant now in the Cup Series that can't boast that same level of consistency in the sport there. Especially not a team that's on a much smaller scale there, and running multiple different series, like the Busch Series to the Truck Series, with multiple different drivers. It's tremendous. And with the same sponsor, kind of reminiscent of the Long Lewis deal there with Red Farmer. The Food Country USA branding still on the 75 truck now. And I imagine whenever their next start is, I don't know if they're running Pocono this weekend or not. I imagine that's going to be an emotional experience there as well. So condolences, of course, to the Henderson family and to the race team itself. But I think if there is any comfort in that, it's that his legacy is assured. And I think that he should be in the conversation. Another person that needs to be in the conversation. We talk about the Hall of Fame also, for that longevity. We see other examples of it, like Jim Rosenblum and the FDNY racing team in the truck series. We see it with Norm Benning and him continuing to beat his own age record in the truck series. And it's interesting to see this confluence come in the truck series, where it used to be that, some or all of these programs would be, back markers in the Cup Series or owner-driver operations in that sense. But definitely some shocking news. Parker Kligerman and Stefan Parsons are very quick to offer their comments on that. Retweeted those on the Twitter page at Last Car on Brock if you haven't seen those. Definitely worth mentioning there at the same time. Yeah, and that Daytona win. I mean, I'm still waiting. It's just rough. I mean, it's unfortunate that last one that happened was that disqualification there, because that was just messed up. It's unfortunate. And maybe something else needs to be looked at down the road. I saw people suggesting well, why not give the team a trophy here at this point? I don't know. I don't know how everybody feels about that on there. But it's just a shame. It's just a shame. What driver was named 1996 True Value Man of the Year for his leukemia charity work? And the answer is Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon. I believe that was the 1-800-MARROW deal with Rick Hendrick's illness. And then Jeff Gordon was, I don't think, 97, I want to say, right around then. Yeah, a lot of guessed Jeff Gordon on that one. I see that on here. Jeff Gordon. Yeah, I don't think anybody guessed Jeff Green for the Golden Retriever, but a lot of you got Jeff Gordon on this one. Next race is IRP. Okay. So, yeah, not too much further down the line. Let's see. We'll do a couple more here to wrap up. What Florida city was Bobby Allison born in? What Florida city? He of the Alabama gang. Kind of interesting twist here. What Florida city was Bobby Allison born in? That is the question here. Ready. And Travis Carter, yes, same with him. Same with him. Oh my goodness. I mean, again, another person with longevity. Benny Parsons, crew chief for the 1973 championship. Part of that Mach 1, team is it kind of transitioned into kind of the Travis Carter Enterprises team. Jimmy Spencer, longtime driver for Travis, dating back all the way back to 1991 in the old Banquet Frozen Foods car. Should have won North Wilkesboro back then that year. Spencer had many close calls, not just those 2 wins he had with Junior Johnson, but when he drove for the 23 car, there was the Bristol night race when Dale Earnhardt dumped Terry Labonte at the last lap of the 1999 Bristol night race. Spencer was right there, and he almost wrecked Dale Earnhardt coming across the line trying to get the lead back from him. It was that close. And Spencer, indeed, was very close to winning Bristol later in his career, driving the Sirius car for Jim Smith. Yeah, exactly. Another big figure in the sport. I'm so glad he got to speak with Rick Houston, the folks over at the Scene Vault podcast. They were sharing some interview clips this week. I touched on his career a bit in the Darrell Waltrip video, the story of Darrell Waltrip's retirement tour and the Haas Carter Motorsports era, kind of towards the end of their involvement in the sport. I have something else that I was kind of working on kind of the later era, kind of going into 2002 and thereabouts, which was a very interesting year for that team. But yeah, it's been a tricky time there for sure. Oh, you're a longtime Kmart manager. I didn't know that, Michael. There you go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's show cars out there many times. How fun. Oh man. Show car displays are just great. Do they even do those anymore? I remember they used to have those even out here. We had, our Safeway, back when I lived in Antioch, we had, we would have like a Jeff Gordon car or something like that come out, Mike Skinner or something like that. Somebody that was one of those brands out there. And yeah, like the small hauler. And for all I know, I mean, one of those guys that was servicing that or part of the display might have been Jerry Nadeau. I know he was involved in some show car stuff back then. What Florida city was Bobby Allison born in? The answer is Miami, it says. Baron Von Weebs, looks like you got it. Ryan Moore, looks like you got it first. Daytona Beach, Tampa. Yeah, there you go. Very surprising. It's kind of like the Bush family in the presidency. You had wasn't George H.W. Bush from like New Hampshire, and then they took up residence in Texas, and they get known as being like Texans. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it just kind of works out that way. That's the thing. That's one of the things that kind of keeps me out here. It's like, I know if I'm, in California, I know on these trips that, not everybody likes Californians, and I get it. There's a lot of Californians I don't like, so that's totally fine. I get it. But it's a known quantity. I think a lot of people would say this of their own state if they were thinking about other places. It's like, yeah, there's other cool places to visit or places that would probably be better. But that would be like it's a new culture. It's a new thing. There's all those unspoken rules you got to learn about and stuff. And, but again, sometimes it does happen where like the Allison family or the Bush family, they move someplace else and they just kind of make that their identity. I guess that's kind of the way it is. Yep. Mike Eddy, I saw that one too. Yeah. Now, I mean, I don't want to make things too maudlin here on the show here, but yeah, I mean, there's, it is, and, Mitchell Stapleton brought this up here, of course, in his videos there, that, there is a lot of this history that's disappearing, and it's best to try to talk to as many of them as you can. And thank God there's a lot of people out there doing it now. It's not, any one person, which is great. There's, I've had no shortage of projects to work on here, and I'm very excited about stuff I'm working on here, and hopefully to kind of bring some of these stories up. And I'd like to do some more current stuff too. I think I'd like to make clear, not just in these shows here too, that, there's still some really compelling stories that happen these days. And I often prefer to kind of describe those in the Last Car articles, but that may be some crossover to the videos too. So we'll see if how things go on that end. Antioch is in the it's kind of the Bay Area, but not really. It's like, I mean, there's a split in authority here. If you watch the local news in the Bay Area, like if you're in San Francisco or Oakland, they'll show Antioch on the map if you're watching the weather map, but it's far to the east. It's like right where, if you look at a map of the Bay Area and it has like, the San Francisco Bay, and then it kind of tapers off and there's like rivers that split off, right where it pinches off on the southern end of it, that's where Antioch is. That's where I used to live. I don't live there anymore. We actually live further east now. But yeah, I used to live out there, and it was hot, and it was like, I don't really miss it too much, to be perfectly honest. We kind of outgrew it. Well, outgrew is maybe not the best way to put it. It just grew apart from it. I think it just changed a lot. There's an Antioch in Tennessee. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Ultimate 23. But we have one in, we have one in California too. I don't know if there's how many other ones there are. There's probably ones in other states. It's probably one of those things like whatever. It used to be called Smith's Landing years ago. We used to do a thing called Delta Pride because it was like the California Delta. Then we'd have to do these speeches about the history of it. And Smith's Landing was what Antioch used to be called. And I guess it just, either people didn't like Smith or they just didn't like the name and they kind of changed it to something else. Let's do one more question here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's a good question. So we're kind of on the Alabama element here as well. What driver was nominated as Alabama's Athlete of the Year in 1986? What driver was nominated as Alabama's Athlete of the Year in 1986? 86 is the question. Oh, I'd love to meet you too, Jimmy. Yep, absolutely. We almost did Texas this year. We didn't quite work that out. That's why we ended up doing Rockingham instead. We probably could have bolted Texas on there, but I'm glad we didn't because I ended up getting sick after Talladega, and I would have been no company that week there. I'm afraid I completely lost my voice, and that would have just been. It was challenging enough here at home, I'll tell you, because I had so much I wanted to say about the trip, and I'm glad I finally got to do it on the show here not long after. But that would be another one. Casey Atwood is Bill from. There you go. Looks like the IndyCar race is picking up. We're almost done here, folks. So thank you again for tuning in. I didn't mean to be second screen content for some of you guys here today, but we'll play that by ear here. I think still doing it after the post race show here on Amazon is working for you guys. We'll do that again next week for Pocono. So I think that's still working here, and then we'll see what TNT's situation is afterwards. I don't know if they're still doing post race or anything. I could always do it after their show as well. We'll kind of figure that out. If you guys have any strong opinions on that, or if you're watching this tape delayed, you can mention it in the comments, and we can go in that as well. What driver was nominated as Alabama's Athlete of the Year in 1986? I guess it's for Davey Allison, Neil Bonnet. Good guesses. Certainly for bringing up the Alabama one. Yeah, the Trey Hutchins, Johnny Sauter crash. That was really scary. That was. Davey Earnhardt. Okay, here we go. As long as the Prime production, I'd assume the post race would be on Prime, not TNT. Okay, well, that would be good. So, yeah, so again, if we're doing this, we can always make that a more permanent thing there for the rest of it. I know NBC, I assume they take over later, like in the playoffs, right? Like, you still have that part of the schedule. They had their postseason playoff or post race show on Peacock. We can do it after that. We'll just figure it out, whatever works. I'll kind of see what things are looking like. Things like Sears Point and Phoenix aren't going to be a problem because we'll be doing that track side, but yeah. What driver was nominated as Alabama's Athlete of the Year in 1986? The answer is Steve Grissom. Hey, that's a surprise. Steve Grissom is the answer. Oh, tilted that way. There you go. Yeah, surprising. Not one of the original members of the Alabama gang that you can think of. They take over in August. That makes sense. Yeah, so it'll probably be fine for the TNT races, and then we'll just see how the NBC races go. Probably for the night races, we'll do it right after. I think, when we did we just had such a long streak of night races. We had, the 600, we had Nashville, and all that. I think that'll probably be where we'll probably do it right after the race is over, because otherwise it's going to be excuse me. Otherwise it'll be like a Rockingham show. It's going to be in the middle of the night, and I don't know if anybody's going to be watching at that point. So there you go. Yeah, NBC puts it on Peacock. That's what I thought. I still have my subscription to that. I hardly ever use Peacock except for the post race. But there you go. Alrighty. So yeah, so Steve Grissom was the answer on that question there as well. Alrighty. Well, I think that's about it. We already had a call on inspection, so Shane Van Gisbergen is your winner, and Kyle Busch will be. Oh dear, I see the cameraman clip. Oh dear. Oh wow, the camera's right in his face. Oh, that's not good. Oh, he just ran right in the back of that dude. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, look at that clip. That's so bad. Oh, that poor guy. Hopefully they're both okay. Oh, that's rough. All righty. Well, tell you what. Well, that'll about do it for the show here this week. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. We had a little bit of everything here. We did a little bit of a quilt show here. We talked about the racing in Mexico City. Yeah, I got to say, just an entertaining week. Hopefully it's going to be, we get some more racing down there in the future, and it gets its own unique spot on the schedule. yeah, another new road course on the schedule that started off with rain. How about that too? So I think it made a little bit of everything there too. They're both fine. Okay, that's good to hear. So yeah, so regardless, that'll be about it for the show here tonight. So my Patreon is patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. We've had a couple new members this week, so thank you for joining up. Got advanced access to the starting grid video posted earlier today. Hope you guys enjoyed that as well. Every time we reach another goal on the Patreon there, I do another one of those starting grids for a race besides the Daytona 500. We're not too far from our next goal on that, so stay tuned on that there as well. And of course, those of you in the Patreon, if we do reach one of those goals, everybody gets to vote on which one I do. And this was the vote on this. It was originally going to be Rockingham. Couldn't make that work, especially once the credentials fell through. And then we moved it over to this race here. And I think that worked out for the best because everybody was really excited about this event, and understandably so. The article on Kyle Busch will be up later tonight on lastcar.info. Of course, there's more videos on this channel, including another video in the works that I'm hoping to get done in early July. And we'll stay tuned for more on that. So in the meantime, thank you everyone for watching. Hope you all have a safe week. Yeah, well, our next show is going to be next Sunday after Pocono. We'll talk about the triple header, Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series, and a lot more going on that weekend as well. Oh gosh, I didn't get super chats, did I? Oh no. Hang on. Let me do that right quick. I didn't. Oh, these are both Beast of Metals. Okay. Hang on, folks. Let me get these two. That's what I'm missing. Where were they? 7 days, 2 hours. Okay, here we go. Okay. Beast of Metal, again, thank you for the super chats here. For first one for $10. My goodness. Thanks, man. Just an FYI, Jim France founded NASCAR according to the description of the Spamazon Prime Le Mans documentary. Yeah, I wasn't aware 3-year-olds had so much influence in business decisions in 1947. I haven't seen that documentary yet, the Le Mans one. That's an interesting mistake in there. I don't know if they meant to say Bill France and just start from there, but, again, I haven't seen that yet. Has anybody else seen that in here? You guys enjoy that documentary? I'm optimistic after how good the Earnhardt one was, although that one had Ron Howard and it looked like a lot of horsepower behind it there and producing it, so hard to say. But again, thank you for the super chat. And thank you also for the super chat for $5 on here. Suarez shouldn't have raced yesterday. JRMs should have given the 9 to a current Mexico Series driver and let them show what they could do. Suarez was going to get a ride for this race in whatever they were going to be running this weekend. I think if it wasn't with JRM, it would have been with somebody else. And if it was with somebody else, yeah, if Trackhouse wanted to put a Xfinity car out there, I don't think anybody would have objected to that. But yeah, I'm with you. I would have liked to see more local drivers compete in the Xfinity race. I had very fond memories of Jorge Getters winning that pole, and it's a name even years later that I remembered when he ran the Mexico race at the LA Coliseum a couple years ago. Yeah, that would have been great to see. But it's good that Suarez got that ride, especially for the inaugural event out here. And I think NASCAR probably wanted to have as many chances as possible for him to win in front of his home crowd. And why not? I have no problem with that. I have no problem anymore with that. And if they put Jacques Villeneuve in every race that weekend in Montreal, even if they had a cup race up there, yeah, I got no problem with that. Just go ahead and do it up there. But I hear you about having more local drivers in there. I was hoping that we'd have that. Maybe we'd have a really big entry list and there'd be more of a competition for those international provisionals there, or maybe even the potential of even a larger field just because they don't want to send anyone home. You're going to have like maybe 45 cars take the green flag. I would have loved to see that too. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case here. So, again, I see where you're coming from though on that. But I think at the end, when it's all put together here, I don't think anybody's going to be unhappy that Suarez was in that race. Never mind winning the race there too. But again, thank you so much for the super chats and definitely appreciate your support there, Beast of Metal. So thank you on that. Yeah. Okay. Well, alrighty. Well, I think that will do it here. Again, Twitter feed is at LastCarlBrock. Thank you again. We just crossed the 10,000 mark on Twitter there, and we crossed 23,000 here on this YouTube channel. So big thanks to everyone for your support. And these streams are a big part of that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you all next Sunday after Pocono's post-race show and we'll review everything from that weekend. So that'll be a stacked one here as well, and we'll watch there from that. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time.